Hello witches, and welcome back to A Coven of Two, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and this is the first day of 12 Days of Yule, which was initiated by Ivy the Occultist, Ivy Carvus. I don't know if it's just me, but in my head is, on the first day of Yule, Ivy Carvus brought to us a winter solstice ritual tradition. But before we get started, let me mention that I've opened a Ko-fi, which is basically an alternative to Patreon that takes less from creators. And on there you can do a one-off donation or a monthly subscription donation to support the work that I do here. And you can also get tarot readings, donate what you can from £5 onwards, and you can get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. So if you would like to support what I do here, you can head on to Ko-fi, and if you do so, thank you so much. For the tradition part, I would like to mention Saturnalia, because on the 17th of December, it was the first day of Saturnalia. It would last until the 23rd, and it was this Roman festival where the world would go upside down. Basically, there was the tradition of starting off with a sacrifice to Saturn in the Forum, and then in every house there would be this topsy-turvy kind of situation where actually the slaves would be served a feast and would be sitting down with the masters, and they would, for a day, basically the world would be turned upside down, and the slaves would be treated like masters. There was also the tradition of exchanging gifts, of having statuettes made of wax to end then the Saturnalia with the day of the Sigillaria, which makes me wonder if that's where the nativity statuettes come from. There was a tradition of bringing in evergreens into the house, and it actually comes from what the Greeks had as Chronia, so it refers to the same deity, to Saturn's, to Chrono, god of order, duty, and I guess in the darkest time of the year, that feeling of impending slightly doom was there, and so that's why we tried to appease, and we tried to have fun, realistically. Like the lower stratum of society were allowed to say what they meant without consequences. I know that I always bring it up, but in my current favorite book, Radical Tarot, on the first card, Charlie talks about the Fool, and how in the Marseille tradition, the Italian tradition, the Fool was actually the jester, the court jester was represented like that. And one of the examples that they bring is exactly festivities in which the jesters were actually elevated to kings and the world was going upside down. They don't mention it directly, but that kind of festival, where that kind of thing happened, was the Saturnalia. One of the things that I personally like a lot about the Saturnalia is that one of the legends of Roman time was that actually Saturn was an old Italian king that predated Rome. And the Saturnalia were celebrated this way, where, like, you know, the lowest one were elevated and treated just like the masters were, and everybody was equal, basically. Because under Saturn, who was this amazing and benevolent king, slaves did not exist, everybody was happy, everything was of everyone. I find it interesting that even in, we're talking about a millennia BCE, at least, the ideal was communism, everybody is taken care of, everybody has their basic needs taken care of, everybody therefore is happy, and we even think back about this time as if it was this utopia that we should aim to go back to. Interesting, isn't it? So when you exchange gifts, when you bring in evergreens in your house, I know that some witches get really mad as saying that Christmas has pagan origins, so we'll try not to say that. I don't want to offend anyone, but there are elements of Christmas that have been mutated and dragged from paganism to now be Christmassy. So having the tree, well, this is not evergreen, this pretends to have snow. But having evergreens, so pines, firs, conifers, bringing those in it was something that we did at Saturnalia, exchanging gifts so that everybody would get a gift, sort of Secret Santa like Saturnalia. Possibly wax statuettes for Nativity, I don't know, I would really like to hear what you have to say about that. Now, quickly, in terms of rituals, I've actually done a ritual with my coven in preparation for Yule and actually the solstice on the 21st of December, which is when you're watching this. And I took a ritual from the Llewellyn Yule book, and I simplified it a lot because it required a bonfire and all. And with my coven, we were just in my house making Yule logs. And simplified, the ritual is you take a black candle and you take a heat-safe dish. In my case, it was an iron-cast little cauldron and tongs, which is all stuff that comes from my kitchen, realistically. And everybody had a piece of paper and everybody had a pencil. And on this piece of paper, we wrote what we wanted to release and leave behind. Because after the solstice, of course, the days start to get longer and in a way, things get regenerated. So what do you want to leave behind that no longer serves you or that it's worth leaving behind? Whether it's people, whether it's habits, whether it's things, what do you want to not hear anymore from, about in the year to come? So we wrote it on these pieces of paper, and then, you know, there's the tradition that if you want something to go away, you fold the paper away from you, and then you turn it anti-clockwise, and then you fold it again away from you for as much as you can fold it. Some of us even put like herbs and salts in the paper so that it was like supercharged on the tongs, burnt on the black candle so that it takes up fire, and once it's burning well, you let it fall into the cauldron and it will finish burning that way. It was very interesting to see that some pieces of paper just caught fire like that, and they clearly really needed to go and be released, and some other took time and you needed to go once, twice or more, so they wanted to stick around. But it's very simple, it's very much reduced, and it's very easy to do with witchy friends, or even not necessarily with witchy friends. Like, it's just you know, a nice superstitious thing, and it was very nice to share. And I have the feeling that because we were already sharing the energy of like making the Yule logs, sort of parallel play that we were all having, that prepared the energy well for that kind of release. So if you want ideas to make one ritual today, that's gonna take you 5 minutes. Black candle, tongs, heat-safe container, and you write on this paper, you burn it on the candle, you drop it in your heat-safe container. And then I personally flushed the ashes in my toilet, so some people are like, oh, take them far away from your house. I wasn't quite in the mood to get out at that point, it was late in the day. But yeah, that's an option, and it's very simplified. The Llewellyn book talks about like a more complex ritual, but that is my reduced down version. The black candle for correspondences is useful because it's banishment, it's release, it's protection. So ideally it's a black candle. If you have nothing else, a white candle will do. Don't worry, it's your intention as always that matters. I hope this was useful, and if you're curious about the Yule logs that I mentioned, fear not, because in tomorrow's video I'm gonna show it to you, because it's going to be all about altar and decorations for Yule, so you can see what we've done, and if you basically have a burning log and a glue gun, you can make it happen as well. And until tomorrow, I hope we can axe the patriarchy together, because there's always so much need for it. Thank you, Ivy, for making the 12 days of Yule.